Hello. Future anthropologists studying the ancient alien archaeologists who studied us? I am kcStranger. This is the Crystal Tomb. As always, the Crystal Tomb is brought to you by XSplit Broadcaster and by Tractor Blonde. I am joined by three of my four shining and wonderful players, beacons in the darkness that is the internet. The fourth will join us shortly. His status as a beacon remains to be determined. Let me go ahead, and I'm realizing some volumes here might be out of whack, so I'm just going to fix that very quickly. All right, that should be a little better. All right, so last time, the party's fight with two purple worms was cut short. First, as Quizmilligus buggered out of the fight with the dimension door. But second, as Indomitable ended on the spot by calling the Scepter of Command to himself and forcing the worms to retreat. He handed the scepter to Kane on his way out, and in the bickering that ensued, the scepter was returned to Fallon. But Kane wound up with the chromatic ring, which contains the dragon spirits and was originally born by Ernan. Sliding the last statue into place had raised the portcullis in the room with the dragon statue, but Indomitable begged off exploring that chamber. Kane entered first, found a room with 5 tombs and an inscription naming them, quote, heroes who fell in the last battle. Along with a letter from an elven priestess begging Indomitable not to be freed. They also found a room full of treasure. Kane failed to pick the lock, but then Quizmilligus summoned an earth elemental to batter the door down, and the party divided the loot among themselves. The loot, however, was immediately returned when it proved to be the possession of the ancient silver dragon, Savrit, who animated from the statue. For the party's compliance, she did award them some platinum, and Quizmilligus in particular a crystal ball. You got the rules for that, by the way, right?
Yep.
Cool. On account of a long past friendship with a halfling. She also gave them some information, namely that she'd been stationed in that place as a, quote, watcher by the goddess Sephi. She said that when Indomitable had been defeated, Innis had cryptically remarked to Sephi that Indomitable had been gifted immortality, and that, quote, some might question for what purpose he was granted that gift of life. The dragon advised the party that their aims might currently be aligned with those of Indomitable, and she believed he would understand the reasons for helping them. She also told them that some creatures were immune to the effects of the vestiges, namely devils, the creation spirits, and the more powerful dragons. And at last she left Kane with a small gold pin and a vague promise of future aid, then disappeared into her treasure vault. The party then left the vault and struck a tense bargain with Indomitable, and also convinced Tavrith to go along with it for a time. So the party, just to quickly show the map, and this is the 700-year-old version of the map, incidentally. However, they're currently leaving Teliaskar and traveling generally this direction towards the Flav Peaks in the distant reaches of the Savage Lands. I will note this is roughly, let me draw a more accurate arrow here. Yeah, it's almost 1,800 miles away. As they flew away, a few of them noticed motion in the distant bayou and a cloud of yellow smoke, something fearsome. They didn't know what. And yeah, as we return, you are flying sort of along the coast, looking out at this bog, but not directly over it. And Tavrith and Indomitable both are silent at this point. Oh, and Fallon is reminding me, you all will need to eat today. Let's just take care of that right now.
Sorry, I thought it was muted already.
I just took advantage of the segue, you know. So if you
Subtract the food.
yeah. So like it could become relevant, the fact that you have finite rations. So go ahead and track that. I will see if I can find Kane's character sheet here. Let me see here. Where's his pack? There it is. All right. And then I will just message him real quick to make sure he knows.
I offer
that.
some food to Dom.
He as you offer it to him, he simply takes it and nods his thanks.
Sorry, I'm trying to find my foods to take one more off. I guess we're just like hurtling through the air.
Yep, basically. Tavrith, has got up to a fair gliding pace. Far in excess of his normal combat speed, but not like screechingly fast or anything. Maybe 40, 50 miles an hour, something like that. And you're just, gliding along the coastline. Nobody has to do anything, but I'm sort of leaving a space in case anyone wants to.
I guess we can't really try to offer him food because that would be weird.
Eat this. Take this. Just put it.
Just throw it in front of him so he can snap.
There's some physics there.
Yeah. I can't think of what we would need to do.
All right, just sitting in silence then.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure Quiz has something to say.
It's like either Quiz would boast or Kane would detract some kind of shenanigans and Fallon shoots up or whatever he does.
Shut up, man. That's why I was, whatever after Casey just described us going along at 40 miles an hour, I don't think smoking gnome salts will work.
Shoot up. You got this.
All right.
I rub some of the gnome salt powder on my gums.
Really?
No.
Okay.
I kind of want to, but
I mean, hey, you could try it. All
right. I'm still pretty hurt, so I better not. I don't know what it'd do to me if I roll poorly. Yeah, I'm really hurt.
Fair enough.
I didn't realize. Oh, can I cast a spell on myself? Can I cast Healing Spirit on Tower's back?
Interesting. I'll allow it. Yeah, so you get, are you just casting it like right on yourself?
Yeah.
Okay, you can recover 10d6.
Are the other ones for other party members, should they need it?
Are you all going to do a mini carousel on Tavrith's back? Well, actually, wait a minute. It's a 5-foot cube. You can all pack into a 5-foot cube. So yeah, sure, you can divide up the other 14 between the others if you would like. Or actually, yeah.
How many other people are wounded besides me?
I'm good.
And Kane doesn't need any help.
Yeah, I'm at 53 of 70.
Okay, you can
don't know. I don't control Kane.
Oh, so. Kane is at full health too. So if 10d6 can get you 17, it'd be a pretty rough roll if it didn't. Go ahead and roll it though.
Unrecognized command. I'm going this way. I can't think right now. Trying to write a speech for a wedding.
Oh,
That was 10d10. I'm
so it
doing
was.
great. Huh.
Okay, there we go. Yep, you're back at full.
You should quote a lot of Shrek in your wedding speech.
All right, so a little bit of healing is done. A lot of silent reflection over the slowly passing countryside is done. The air is warm, a bit stuffy, but you've got more than a slight breeze passing, so it's not uncomfortable. Actually, if anything, you've got too much of a breeze. Finally, after a few hours in silence, Dom speaks up and says, and he sort of gestures towards Kane and says, "So, that one was saying something about tentacle monsters. Anyone care to explain?"
I've been asking about them for months and have never gotten an answer, so I've given up.
Well, you got an answer from Kate.
Fallon looks at Colleen and says, has he really been asking?
I thought he got the picture when Kane just kind of went on that rambling, recap of the event. He should write books.
So Fallon says, well, there's these creatures that were banished by the god people, and they're back, and they want to eat or destroy everything. And they happen to be from nothing, or that's where they lived, I guess. And they've got tentacles. Real jerks.
He just looks at you for a long moment and says, "And where did you encounter these creatures?"
Before they answer that, let me ask you, Indomitable,
He
how
looked,
how clear of a vision of the events going on do you have now after this level of explanation?
he pauses for a moment and then says, "Have you ever read the back cover of a book?"
Yes,
About half that much.
I just wanted to make sure we were on the same page.
He nods. And then he looks back at you, Fallon, and says, "So you encountered these creatures where?"
Where did we fight that one? Where it got in?
It was in a Shaw temple, was it?
Wait, which one are you asking about?
The one that took out Ennis.
Oh, that was actually in Topworth's cave.
That was the first one, right?
Maybe.
In the flesh. So you're talking about, is Blimploop one of them or no? I don't think so, right?
Different aberration class, I believe.
Okay, so I'll just say, actually, it was in Torvald's house.
Colleen, give me. Actually, wait. Let me think about this. Give me intelligence.
Oh, I rolled well.
Yeah. Okay. As you say that you think that like Blimploop is a different class, something strikes you. There's been some rough alignment between the times when you've encountered aberrations and the times when you've encountered the Sons of Qual. So, for instance, thinking back to the very first one you encountered, which was in fact in Tavrith's cave, short before you encountered it, you did battle against some aberrations. Also, their tower was in the Underdark, And that's where you've encountered by far the most of them. And actually, even one of the time shifts that you underwent was associated with an entire Mind Flayer civilization arising. It's far from a perfect correlation, but there's a strong enough association there that you start to suspect that the aberrations might be more attuned to them, if you will.
Yeah, indomitable way he said.
Yes, it was a
I'll
big-
just, I mean, do you share your insight? Because if so,
Yeah.
okay.
Colleen
Let's-
has no concept of like hiding information unless it's from Kane.
All right, fair enough. So Colleen sort of stops the conversation for a moment, and mentions something more or less like what I just said.
Okay. Fallon says, Thank you for that. It was in Tolra's house, like I said, and Innes was there, and it hurt Innes pretty good.
You met the Avatar of Innis.
Yeah, she's pretty nice. And I've talked to Carulo too, I think.
He shrugs. He says,
Fallon shrugs and says, anyways, yeah, she got hurt. We helped her out, and then we saw some more under the ground somewhere, I think.
Did you know Carulo has holy trebuchets?
Actually, let me think about this real quick. He looks at you, Colleen, and says, "What?"
Let me just throw doubt on all of my intelligent pondering. My total lack of wisdom for this trick. Yeah, there was someone we used to travel with, and he kept saying that one day, just big ballistic arrow out of the sky, trebuchet of Carulo.
He looks at you for a long moment, and actually, let me get out my die real quick.
Weirder things have happened, honestly.
Okay. He looks at you and says, "What you just said makes more sense than most of what I'm hearing, so fair enough."
Fallon says, if you think that's weird, we met this giant squid creature that touched our brains and all gave us powers, but we kept shifting to different times, like where things were different all the time.
He stops and thinks about that for a moment. So, as in things that happened before actually didn't happen, and instead other things did, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Kind of drives you crazy.
Did it ever shift back?
Fallon looks at Colleen.
Wasn't Kane the one who carried that?
Carried what?
Oh no,
The
Fallon, you've got the little stone.
the
that-
item that
Oh, the time
changed
gem.
color. Yeah.
Yeah, it was green when you picked it up in the first timeline, and now I think last time you checked it, it was like blue or something.
Fallon pulls out his time gem
Okay.
and says, well, one of those tentacle people was disguised as our friend, and he gave us this to tell when the time changed.
Oh, actually, you got it
Worked.
from a guy at the Tower of Venice.
I thought we got it from that guy.
You got it from a guy at the Tower of Venice. His name was Urin, and I kept having trouble figuring out how to not pronounce his name as Urin.
I thought that was from who was the little halfling or whatever, gnome or whatever he was.
Yeah, he was a gnome.
What was his name?
I actually remember this name for some reason.
That's the gnome. So that is the guy I'm talking about.
Yep.
Okay, well then, okay. I thought you were correcting me.
Well, he was at the Tower of Venice. He wasn't.
Okay. Well, he was somebody's friend in our party. He wasn't part of mine and Colleen's like initial one-off.
No, I
But
think
he was-
I think you met him for the first time there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we
he's
met
not-
this little gnome at the tavern. It's named Urin Mazimo, and he apparently was one of them tentacle guys. But he gave us this, and we could tell when it happens. Now I don't think it's changed back to the other color. He wasn't. What? He
No,
was.
no, he wasn't.
What
He-
happened? Yeah, he was.
He was
I
just the
don't
guy
think
at the
anyone
tower.
was a tentacle person. I don't
Well,
recall
okay, well
that.
then who died and turned into a tentacle tower at that one place?
Died and turned into a tentacle tower.
Yes. There was somebody who was totally our buddy, and then come to find out, not our buddy, in the sky, like his eyes turned purple or whatever.
The
Think of that
dwarf
house.
in the dungeon that became the force ghost
No,
when we lost the cleric.
there was some little guy, and I thought it was this guy that gave us the time gem.
Oh! I know what you're talking about. He was also known. His name was Oh, I got this. Come on, Corin.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
from Jado's. That's Alistair's
Yeah.
compatriot. Yeah,
Okay, well, I
that was the
thought
guy
that- I
that I
thought-
talked about. The dwarf thing that died in the dungeon.
Yeah.
Okay,
He
well,
didn't give you the time stone though.
Yeah.
I thought he did. Okay.
Yeah.
My mistake.
The problem is that the guy who gave you the time stone is pretty forgettable. He only showed
Urin
up
and Corin.
in that one session.
Okay, my bad.
Hey,
Well,
you
then
know,
I'm just misremembering, and that's canon.
Yeah, well, and he's got a super similar name, I'm now realizing.
So Valen says, anyways, he was a tentacle guy, and then we gave us these. They haven't changed, and by the way, we don't ever stay in one place to go. We don't ever go back to see if something's returned. Have we? Valen looks at Colleen. Have we ever retraced a step?
once or twice, and usually things don't line up, and we're like, well, we'll deal with that later. We've got other things to do.
Right. So Indomitable looks at so either I'm imprisoned in every reality, or it's just in this one, and I would have no way of knowing.
Well, if it helps, we usually fix more than we break.
He looks at you and says, "Well," and then he trails off and just shrugs.
Valen looks at Colleen and says, he probably is the fella that wants to do the breaking. You probably just made him mad.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to break things?
Only things that deserve breaking.
Well, at least he has a rule for it.
Valen says, points to himself, Colleen, Quiz, and says, oh, we're very undeserving. Maybe the blue one.
Seconding.
Kane is just daydreaming.
He is the lawless one, I would say.
Indomitable nods. Finally, he looks at you, Quizmilligus, and says, so, have you seen evidence of what these ones are saying?
I don't know anything about the time jumping. Was something I'm sure Kane.
I flipped the time gem end over end towards Quiz. Dexterity check, see if you catch it.
Oh, then it's good.
Sure.
Off the back of a dragon.
Sleight of hand. Give me sleight of hand. Fallon, do the same for your throw.
Boy, here it comes.
Uh,
They tied.
you drop it, but it falls. Like, the throw is a little off. Your attempt to catch was a little off, but it clatters into the base of the sort of saddle thing on Tofferth's back. You look it up. I mean, you pick it up and look at it. It is sort of a dark violet, sort of indigo colored, smooth and round, slightly lustrous stone. Nothing otherwise remarkable seeming about it. Other than that, you can look at it and see that it is obviously magical.
Well, and now they've thrown a stone at me. This is also new information. One thing I have seen though is Kane got offered something from some tentacle monster and released it into the world, and now we have to find more artifacts to do something to stop the evil. Something.
That is the thing that happened.
Very well. And you say they want to, what, eat the world or something along those lines?
That's pretty much what they said. I'm really just along for the ride at this point.
I like that since we have a new friend here, it's they and them and not us anymore.
Oh, very well.
Hey, Casey, what was the place where we killed Fallon's mom?
What did I name that city? It was a Yuan-Ti city in the east of the forest.
Was there a
And
special name for the pyramid?
I did not specially name the pyramid. It was just like the temple.
Okay. Well, I guess you weren't at the top of the. Yuan.
Oh, Vixeth. That's what it was called.
I think you knocked your mic out.
Or maybe he's
Or
unfortunately
yeah,
needed to talk
talking
to
to someone.
somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry,
No,
my
it's just-
apologies. Sorry. Anyways, I was like, well, you weren't at the top of the temple of Ixith, and so you lack the camaraderie. You didn't help
was
kill
fun.
my mother.
Quiz looks confused and then just sort of shakes his head and goes back to looking at the stone he threw at him.
I put her in a ball and pushed her down the temple. It was fun.
Anyway, and Donald says, a few more questions, if you don't mind, that occur to me. He looks around at the world about you. I've obviously been in there for quite a long time. Are you able to tell me anything about how the world has changed during the last, I don't know, few thousand years, I think?
Helen looks at Clean, and then he looks back at Dom and says, I grew up in a forest, and I don't know anything about how the world used to be.
I point to myself and I was like, I'm only 94 years old.
Fallon says, maybe when we land, Tavrith can. Hey, it sounds interesting to me too. Maybe I could.
Quiz, he turns and looks at you.
How the world is now.
He
Well,
shrugs. Do you know who the dominant powers are? If there are any large increases in technology, that sort of thing.
Well, back on our little island, Spearyu has quite a bit of interesting technology. Good times. The gnomes are fantastic drinkers and they love a good story. And I respect them for it. The humans have a lot of power, but this outside world we know very little about.
You're from an island? Are you...
Okay, Casey, I can't say that island's name, and I really don't remember.
It's Einon Grun.
Yeah,
He
okay,
says,
we're
he
from
says,
Einongren.
Oh, he says, are you somewhere in the Kalaya Isles? Before you're able to say that. And then you say you're from Einon Grun. And he says,
Mhm.
I've not heard of that place. Where is it?
Do we have a map, right?
Sure, I'll allow it. You have specifically this map.
I point to Einongren.
He looks at it and says, we had charted the whole of the Crystal Sea in my time. How could we not know of this place?
Does Quiz know about like the weird shit that goes on around Einongren?
Yeah, everyone does. It's common knowledge.
Okay, I will describe that to him to the best extent I can.
To the best extent you can.
Yes.
Including... Do you include the fact that Cypher, the Looking Glass, allows one to navigate to Einangrun, and do you also include that your party currently has that item?
No,
Okay.
because I didn't know that.
Okay,
Clever.
fair enough.
Clever boy.
I guess, all right, I thought maybe you knew that, but apparently you don't. Okay, cool.
I wasn't there when we left Einangrun. That was
Yeah.
a session I missed.
Fair enough.
But no, I'll just tell him Einangrun's, it's like stuck in a time thing, a bubble,
Like
a bibble.
Yeah, so the basic explanation of it is, all right, let me ask this question. Do you guys know even vaguely about how, like, in general relativity, space-time can warp?
Oh yeah, totally.
Okay. So, like, the idea is that when there's an object that has a lot of mass, like, space will sort of, like, warp
Yeah,
in
yeah,
and
yeah.
around that,
Mhm.
right?
That's yeah.
So, Einangrun is basically this. Okay. So the idea is that you have to navigate a very specific path to get into the middle of it, so to speak. Otherwise, you just sort of slip out on the other side.
I'm glad you enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed that.
I take one sheet of my parchment
Okay.
and I do that exact thing. I now have 47 sheets.
Okay, I wanna check something real quick. So as you are explaining that, oh gosh, what do I want to give it for this? I guess I'll just do this. Oh
Oh,
shit,
boy.
he gets it. All right, he understands how this works.
Galaxy brain.
Well, you can see his intelligence mod is only +1, but hey, those crits. This is the game for people with like low to modest int to roll high. Anyways, at least memorably.
Yeah.
So yeah, so he nods and says, "I see." So he looks at this map. How old is it?
Do we know that?
Yeah, I mean, isn't it like 700 years old?
Yeah. So you know that your people left the outer world 700 years ago, so the knowledge is at least that old.
I tell him.
So,
Yep. Go ahead. Oh, so
so you at least have like a 300 years. He said 1,000, right?
he said thousands.
As long as that's how long he's been stuck.
He said, I don't know, a few thousand years. In fairness, he probably didn't have a timekeeping device.
That's on him. We all know that Tallworth knows. We just gotta. He'll tell you when we get there.
Very well. He looks at it and he just says, so the Javit Empire, the city of Jurdek.
Well, don't we know? We know Javit's gone, right? And it's the Ashal Empire now.
You know they are no longer Well, you're pretty sure they are no longer in a dominant position. You do not know for sure whether they don't exist anymore.
That was like that time we journeyed across the desert with the cat person for like a day. Was that when we were doing that?
Yeah, they were from the outside world, and they did mention that the Ashal were basically ruling now.
Was the cat person that other person in the group for a half a minute, or was
that was Elko for a hot
we
second.
actually had a session with him? That wasn't the. There was
Yeah.
a sleeping. I thought there was one where it was a sleeping cat person. That's all I remember.
Oh, yeah. That was like how they were introduced or something. I don't know. I've like soft written them out of the world, not like all the way, but like anyways, too complicated of a character for me to worry about now. Anyhow.
Our finale has to have all past party members.
Yeah, that would be something. All right.
Bring on the guest stars.
Oh, I mean, I have thought it would be fun to. Anywho.
Halal.
Exactly.
So Fallon says, "Well, I did hear that Javit is not really a thing these days, but there's these Eshols." and they're the bad guys. So, I guess, did we talk about the demon army?
He raises an eyebrow.
Okay, so these Eshels found some way to bring a demon army into the island, Idengrun, and they had a couple of the. They had two, right? Or did they just have one of
2
the
or 1 what?
Yeah.
Alkadir items?
They have
You know they have 2 now.
So something of fusion. The
And
axe is over here in the hills.
yeah.
Is that all that's left that we don't
They
have?
also have the Chalice of
That's
Prosperity.
it.
Okay. So Fallon says, yeah, they've got 2 Alkadir. And Fallon says, wait a minute.
Hmm?
You don't suppose you could materialize those out of their possession?
He looks at you and says, the ability has a range limit.
As do most. Um, okay, well, that might come in handy.
He nods and says, just one last question for now. You seem to know the location of these items. How precise of a bead do you have on them?
That's a good question for the DM. I mean, I got that information direct from Imra, right?
Right. It occurs to you that you've never tested that.
Fallon says, well, let me use my Imra connection. Hold on.
Okay, I've been calling this. Yeah, I've been calling this a charisma check. Give me a charisma check.
Okay, my God. A save or just a check?
Just a check. Yeah, you're not quite sure. You look awkwardly about for a moment, but then you just sort of settle back and sort of look down and like think Imra thoughts.
Yeah.
Actually, let me see here. I need to check something. See where it is. There it is. All right. Yes. Okay. And just a moment after that, there's sort of a small twisting of the space just to the. Or actually, wait a minute. No, would that happen? No. Okay, so you think that, and then you hear a voice, and it simply says, "Fallon, you know, if you call every day, you start to seem desperate, right?"
Fallon says,
Oh.
"You son of a stench cow! you made you made me unlock this clearly evil thing."
By the way, none of the rest of you are hearing this. This is happening just sort of inside Tophet's head. I mean, inside
Or
Fallon's
Fallon
head.
says,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, I wouldn't have said that where Dom could hear me.
Right. He says back, that one still has a bargain with me.
All right. Well, I just need to know: was it because you were his friend and help him, or because you didn't want to be in that crappy dungeon anymore?
Frankly, mostly the second.
Well, as soon as we stop the nothing creatures, he's just gonna do their job for him. Bravo, I guess.
You hear a slow clap. Or actually, no. That wouldn't make any sense.
Slow chuckle.
You receive the mental impression of a bow. like sort of a sweeping theatrical one.
Break more than we fix.
And Fallon says, "You ever hear the song 'The Devil Went Down to Scrit'?"
He thinks for a moment. Can't say that I have.
You will. I'm gonna get him. And Fallon says, "All right, so we're getting close to where that you told me that axe of sundering is. How do I tell where it is? Can I just feel it?"
Oh, he thinks for a
This
moment.
is sort of a terrible bargain.
You mean once you get to the general area, how do you find the precise location?
Yep, that's the one.
Right, well, you do have to look for it eventually. Do you know the spell Locate Object?
Fallon doesn't respond at all.
I don't mean that you should take that spell. What I mean is that
Can I even take that spell? That was my.
No, it's outside your class.
Yeah, so.
At least I think it is. But he says, the gift, shall we say, that I gave you is something of the inverse of that particular spell. That spell will locate an object that is within, I believe, 500 feet of you. Actually, is it 500 or 1,000? I think it's 500. But that's within 500 feet of you, and, well...
Sorry, it's 1,000.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Says, that spell will tell you the location of an object that's within 1,000 feet, and, well, the ability I gave you will allow you to know where the vestiges are, plus or minus 1,000 feet.
I actually can learn locate object.
Oh,
I was
okay,
wrong.
sweet.
Not that I'm gonna.
You have to be familiar with the object to locate it.
Okay. All right. So I just kind of, once I bump into a close enough range, I'll get a feel for where it is.
No, that's exactly what I'm saying. It will get you within 1,000 feet. You'll know that much.
Oh. Okay.
So
Cool.
basically, if you imagine...
I'll know when it's getting away from me, but
Yeah.
I won't know when I'm close to it.
Essentially.
I understand the concept.
Yep. It's not enough to pinpoint it.
If I'd only known how terrible it was for you in that dungeon, God, what could I have gotten? So much.
Well, one does like to drive a hard bargain.
One does like to unleash a secondary evil on the world and not really care.
I take offense. I care very much about that.
It's really telling. You can see it all in your eyes, I guess.
Fallon, do you not know what kind of creature you're dealing with here?
Devil's bromance. Fallon says, well, I mean, I do, but I don't know. I thought we had something there.
Oh, we do. That's why I didn't make this bargain with anyone but you.
Right. Thanks. My skin hasn't felt like it's been crawling all week. Well, thank you for the information. Goodbye. Not going to release any more evils for you. Goodbye.
Oh, what a shame. And, oh, I have to take my muffins out of the oven just to see you, Fallon.
It's like the worst.
Should I click on this link? I'm streaming.
Absolutely.
The anger, that little expression.
Oh, that's amazing.
That was good. Okay. So then Fallon comes back to reality, I guess.
Yeah.
And I don't. I assume time has passed.
A little bit, yeah.
And yeah, Fallon says, "Well, so I can get us close, but then we gotta look."
Indomitable nods. That shouldn't be a problem. And then he sort of leans back and says, well, I think that's quite enough of my questions for now.
I'll take off my hat real quick.
Yep.
Yeah, I think your hat was molesting your mic.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's also 1,000,000,000 degrees.
All right. Any other conversation that people were looking for? Otherwise, I'll skip ahead a little bit.
So indomitable. What did you do to get yourself stuck in that cage?
He looks over at you, shrugs, and says, oh, what anyone else in my situation does. They say I tried to conquer the world, not too far from the truth.
How'd you go about that?
Get the vestiges, use vestiges to get followers, etc., etc.
So you're a cult.
No, not a cult leader. There's no religious overtones or anything like that. I merely attempted to show people a better way of living.
Fallon says, "Yeah, but I have to say, being a god is very nice. For like we were a god for a few minutes." And then Fallon looks at Clean. Wait a minute, are we still gods?
I mean, I felt like he would be the one to argue more one way than the other, but stay humble, Fallon.
He looks back at you, Quizmilligus. Any particular reason, you ask?
Oh, just curious. We're hunting these vestiges, and I barely know what they do.
Oh, well, Fallon says, "Oh, that's easy. There's a scepter of command. You'll never guess what it does.
Yeah, no, I think we saw that one. That one makes sense.
There's the crown of allure. Everybody's your friend and loves you. There's
Unless-
a
yeah,
cape
never
of
mind.
delusion, and I guess you make illusions or whatever. There's an amulet of foresight. You know what's going to happen, like briefly before it does. Then there's the gauntlet of suffusion. I think you can cast spells really far away. And then I have no idea what the other two. I think the chalice gives you money or something.
Indomitable says, your descriptions are close enough for most of the objects. The chalice is essentially an endless font of transmutation. So turn whatever you want into whatever you want. You should know the gauntlet does carry some of its own spells along with it, so even in the hands of a non-caster, it has some use. And
Fallon says, "Wait, you can transmute whatever you want."
he looks at you. Yep.
So I could walk down the street, touch every man I see on the shoulder, and give him a really big pair of breasts. Just keep walking.
Well, remember these things do have consequences, and
There would be some
well,
consequences, I'm sure.
it could take over your mind, but that's fine. It's already somewhere else, I see.
Also, I should be more specific. It changes the material of the creature, not its form or object. So you
Yeah,
could turn a stone mountain into a mountain made of, he thinks for a moment, paper? I don't know. But you could not so easy, although he thinks for a moment, that would take an extraordinarily long time, though. There are limits on these things. But to, as you say, give a man, I presume you mean larger breasts. Not exactly the use.
I meant like a woman's.
He nods. As for the acts of sundering, essentially he shrugs. Very powerful, very damaging acts that can sever the links between body, soul, and spirit.
Dips.
That's a fine blade.
He nods. It's not terrible.
Probably best kept away from the Ashal, though.
He shrugs. I suppose so.
So what do you do after you conquer the world? What was the end goal?
Isn't that kind of the goal? He thinks
Yeah,
for a
but you
moment.
had to have had a plan. Like, no one just wakes up one day and goes, I want to rule all this shit land and be the best without having some plans they want to enact.
Give me insight for this next part.
Sure.
Okay.
Water parks. He wanted to do water parks.
He hasn't been looking you in the eye at all up to this point, but he does as he says this next bit. And he says, all I want is to keep people in line.
So people doing things that you define as out of line is troublesome to you?
He thinks for a moment. Have you ever seen a garden? A very nice, well-tended garden with beautiful flowers and plants and and trees with fruit and vines and all such manner of things, all well-tended and well-curated.
Yes.
Is it not beautiful?
It is.
And have you ever seen a neglected garden, overgrown with weeds and thorns and altogether unlovely to look at, intractable to work? Have you seen that as well?
Of course.
Why can a garden exist?
Because someone was there to maintain it.
Someone more powerful than the plants, yes. Could the plants garden themselves?
There's a forest. There's a jungle.
But is there not, he looks at you, something wonderful about a garden that the forest and the jungle do not provide?
Sorry, was there something more? Jungle and garden wouldn't provide that the
He
garden
said,
would?
is there something wonderful about a garden that the jungle and the forest do not provide?
More abundant walking space.
Altogether more beautiful and orderly, yes?
And you know
I mean,
the correct order of things. You know how it should look.
He
found,
looks at
yeah.
he looks at you and says, have you ever met an infallible gardener? A gardener who had never a weed, never a plant out of place, never a single one of their flowers wilt and die? Have you ever known such a gardener?
Well, things die naturally,
He nods.
regardless of your skill.
He nods. My point is, you've never known a perfect one, yes? All gardeners have flaws. All gardeners have room to increase their skill and increase the beauty of their garden, right?
That is the magic of living.
He nods. But would you ban gardeners? Because they are not perfect? Because they do not know how to make every decision? Because one gardener might make a better decision than they would?
Fallon says, I'm so lost.
Essentially, Fallon, this one here believes he's infallible, that he can maintain the perfect garden.
That, he looks at you, is exactly the opposite of what I just said. As I just said, he looks at you squarely. No gardener is perfect. None. Similarly, I am not perfect. Nevertheless, he sort of looks out over the landscape below you. The creatures of this world are desperately in need of some gardener.
So what made you decide it was you?
He looks back at you, gives a small shrug, and actually insight check once more as he says this. Okay, shit. All right.
I'd like the plot, please.
Um,
Can you just send me your notes? I'll read the rest.
The answer that he gives you to the question, basically, why you? He says, because I could. And you notice almost imperceptible, but you see him just squint for the slightest moment. You see the sun glint off of his eye. You see a small crease at the corner of his mouth. And you realize that this is not just him saying, he wants to take this role because just sort of in the abstract, he thinks that somebody has to, and he's like, well, I figured out how to rule the vestiges, so why not me? Okay, it's not just that. There is some deeper hurt going on here that motivated him to do all this. And you can see that clearly in his features. You don't know what that could possibly be, but you are quite confident in that, in fact.
So after he says that, I stare at him and sort of cross my arms and narrow my eyes at him and just sort of nod in acceptance of what he said.
As you do that, he, with, again, his features ever so slightly softened, just the barest bit from the moment that you met him, he nods back and looks at the sky.
This totally reminded me of the scene. Secret Life of Pets 2. Sorry. There's a bunny and a little dog, and they're both not where they're supposed to be. So they keep asking each other, why are you there? I don't know, why are you there? And they both just say, okay. Back away.
Right.
I'll find it and send it, sorry.
Yeah, no
I
worries.
remember. I watched that on the plane.
All right. Anything else before we time skip just a little bit?
How did you control all the vestiges without the repercussions, without the side effects?
He sort of a slightly disturbing but small grin crosses the corner of his mouth as he looks at you and says, a magician needs to have his secrets, right?
Well, yes.
He
But
opens his arms. He says, I've been quite open with you about
About what?
more or less everything you might ask, but that one I'm going to keep to myself.
I really want to use the cape. It's so cool. Hunt.
I'm sorry, that's me laughing. It might be a little. He chuckles, actually, and he says, "I think I can understand. It does have quite the number of possibilities."
It's hard to resist sometimes, especially with these guys.
He nods and he says, "In the name of being open, do you know what the repercussions are?"
Well, with the scepter, he couldn't get away from it, and the crown, he had trouble taking it off. I managed to uh will myself away from the cape without any problems, but it didn't seem like it would be getting easier to do that.
He nods. "Yes, that is just the earliest of the symptoms normally associated with use of the vestiges."
Alternatively, I could go full dive and just see what happens. That would be
He
something.
he nods and says, "Well, if you ever want spoilers, just let me know."
Well, now I'm curious. Is that how you rule the world?
He tips his head and says, "No, no, that's what I figured out how to get around. But," he looks at you, "for most people who would use the vestiges, yes, the first sign is a subtle emotional bond with them, if you will. Over time, they will begin to amplify your vicious tendencies before finally creeping into effects in your physical appearance as well. Ultimately, they will weaken you in any conflict with devils, specifically. The minions of Alkadir, if you will. They will start to give you a certain aura that has negative effects on all around you. Ultimately, they will bend you to their will."
And
Fallon says maybe you have to have them all together.
What's this about having them all together?
Fallon says maybe you have to have them all together to not be bothered.
there's what,
Maybe that's
Got
seven?
it
it.
figured out.
7 vestiges? Is that you just need
Yep.
enough negatives to make a positive?
Yes, yes, perhaps that's it. He smiles.
It's the bright side to everything. So does that mean that you're deeply disturbed, or you're some kind of serene that you're away from it?
He looks at you again. You're asking the question I'm not going to answer. He's actually like, this is the only time you've ever seen him like actually kind of pleased with himself. He's normally more serious.
Fine then, keep your secrets.
Hmm.
I'm done. That's all
All right. So, you continue on flying for a number of hours. Actually, after a while, you start to realize that Tovrith has been going for a good long time, and he hasn't stopped at all. Your legs sort of start to get a bit stiff, but still he goes. Finally, the sun, though, starts to, you know, look a little closer to the horizon. And also, it starts to rain softly, sort of a humid, stuffy kind of light rain. Um, and Tovrith sort of levels out into a glide and bends his neck back to look sort of towards you, so like sort of his left eye facing in your direction. And there's a, and actually, let me see here. He says, "I've been trying to make it past the bog, but I'm afraid we're going to have to stop in it for the night." At this, Indomitable looks over the edge towards the shoreline and says, "Actually, I think we're in a good spot. Double back just about half a mile, and then head another half mile in past the shore. What's over there? He thinks for a moment. Some time ago, I had a hidden command outpost there. Even if it's been looted, I can't imagine it's been torn down completely. It might offer a shelter for the night. Tavrith asks the rest of you, well, that acceptable to you all?
Do you prefer a bed when I can get one?
Very well. He turns back around, levels out his glide, and then banks to swoop in towards the shore. You there are a few more instances of Tavrith and Indomitable exchanging a few words. Finally, here we go. You do. Actually, I transitioned a bit early, but we'll get here. No worries. You do land in a small clearing. Basically just a patch of somewhat firmer earth in sort of a mangrove swamp all around you. Tavrith lands and then finally shifts back into his dwarf form. Indomitable guides you all towards the edge of the little clearing, and it doesn't have any tools to work with, but just basically pulls and pushes through with his arms and guides you all to a cave, which actually, as you enter it, turns out to be a tunnel that leads deeper into the bog. On the other side of the tunnel, you emerge into sort of a curious basin of sorts. The interior is basically just swamp water with sort of a broken dirt path that leads up to what you see as a decrepit stone fort. All around the basin, however, it's sort of, there are steep rocky walls all around it, and the mangrove swamp continues on all sides, with the trees growing rather high all around you. You realize that although it's quite obvious what's going on when you're inside this little basin, it would actually be pretty hidden from the outside. You could basically only see it very well from more or less directly above it. The moonlight, the moon has, or actually no, wait, no. So the light of the setting sun is filtering softly through the mangroves as you're getting increasingly damp from the light rain. You approach the fort. Anything in particular, or shall I continue narrating?
I guess what is this place?
He shrugs. As I said, command outpost, just only enough to house a small squad, but we used it as a supply cache and as a temporary base of operations during the war.
Any traps?
He says, our presence there when we were there was trap enough. I can't imagine that anything we set up has survived this long, but I'll make sure to warn you if I remember anything.
Okay.
He nods. He leads you in. You walk through an archway that you think is probably a door frame that's missing the door. You do notice large gaps in the stone walls where it's just completely crumbled down. At the back, though, and the floor is overgrown in parts, but also in parts is just stone, just carved stone. At the back, you do see an iron door that still sits closed on its hinges, and also a set of stairs leading down to a basement. And Indomitable says, "We should all head downstairs." And to that, Tovrith actually shifts back into his dragon form and says, "I'll stay here for the night if you don't mind." Indomitable shrugs and then gestures towards the rest of you. Basement.
Sounds good to me.
You head downstairs. And this is now what I'm showing for the scene here. It's Spartan but serviceable. There are benches. There are some smooth stone slabs that wouldn't be horribly uncomfortable for sleeping on, especially with your bedrolls. There are some serviceable tables. There are some sconces that he looks around and says, "If anyone has a torch, we can get some light in here." I'll say Kane gives him a torch.
I can see in the dark.
I can
Yeah,
too.
I can too.
Can he not? Is this his one drawback?
No comment.
Insight check.
lack of sight check. Yeah.
I mean, sure, you can roll an insight check if you want.
I'm fine. I was just. If
I'm
Kane
petty.
has the torch, I will.
Yeah, you don't think he has dark vision.
Nerd.
Nerd. All right. Oh yeah, Kane doesn't actually have torches. He's got.
I don't have any either. I
He's
looked.
got a lantern and oil flasks.
We still have those little lights from the cave, right? Before we fought Blind Poop or whatever his name is. Glow crystals. Yeah.
That's true. They're rather dim light, but they would be maybe enough to get the job done.
But do you remember your activation word for your glow crystal?
Well, I think I have it. Hold on. I'm gonna look at. I thought.
What you looking for?
My sword. I thought it could make light. Frostbrand. I'll just Google it. If not, I'll do a torch. But oh, it's only if it's freezing. Okay. I will do a torch.
Okay, cool. Yeah, they light the place up. Colleen, do you want to announce what you're doing, or do you want to just go over it, just sit down and start?
Just clean things.
Okay, all right. Just a second. All right. So yep. Actually, let me see. Does he? Let me just check something real quick. Sure. I'll show you the check. All right. He doesn't notice.
Jesus, what is his modifier? 10?
Yeah.
Good grief.
Oh, that's hysterical. Okay.
I mean, not doing anything bad. Promise.
Yep. So, you light you set the torch in one of the sconces, and Indomitable sort of starts pacing around the room. There is a fair bit of dust and detritus on the ground. But finally he does get over to the stairs and says, "Ah." He looks back at the rest of you. "This place was looted. Most of the caches are empty. but they missed the most obvious one under the stairs. He kicks a loose stone on the wall, and a hatch slides out, and he looks down in it. Let's see what we have here. And he sets out a number of items, and before saying, well, fairly basic aside from these. Oh, and this. He holds up a few items. These, and I'll just say he's sort of talking to Quiz and Fowlin. Looks like we have left over some, and he looks at it with a little bit of concern, arrows of dragon slaying. I think for the sake of peace, I had best not hold on to these. He sets them back inside and says,
Well, what? Just give them here.
very well. He hands them over to you. Fallon, you now have 4 arrows of dragon slaying, which is not a small thing. Although...
No, those items are nuts.
How much do they weigh?
0.05. These are arrows. They will not fire from your crossbow, unfortunately.
Let's all just agree that Kane doesn't have to know.
I mean, fair enough. But I mean, unless he watches the VOD. But basically, what they do is if you hit a dragon with an arrow of dragon slaying, they have to make a DC 17 Constitution save. And if they fail, they take an extra 6d10 piercing. If they succeed, they take an extra, they take half damage. So that is what those do. And he says, let me see. Any of you use, he says, Fowlin, you have a shield, right?
Yes.
He says, I'll trade you. And he holds up sort of a blue-looking shield that he's pulled out of this hatch.
Okay. What does it? Do I need to roll for it? Or can I just ask him what's special about it?
No, he's offering. You can ask.
Okay. What's with the blue?
Right. He looks at it and says, it does take some time to attune to it. However, this is an animated shield. So essentially just speak the command word and it'll do all the blocking for you, leaving your hands free in case you want to use a two-handed weapon or anything like that.
Cool. I can only be attuned to 3 things, though, right?
That is correct.
Choices.
Anyways,
other
he
shield they gave
shrugs.
you?
It still works as a normal shield, so I think it's a strict upgrade on what you have.
I'm eyeballing the blue shield and I hand my other one out to him. Like, okay, here you go.
All right. Indomitable has a shield now. Oh. Right. And then he looks, as for the rest of this, he sets out a bunch of stuff, including 40 completely normal arrows, 2 quivers, an explorer's pack, just an empty pack, 2 longbows, a set of chainmail, a set of hide armor, 4 hand axes, a maul, so basically big ol' warhammer. Anyone interested in any of that?
It sounds like
Is
you're
there
introducing a new player to the party. With all this stuff. Welcome, new kid.
Is there anything special about the mall?
It's just a big dumb weapon.
Okay, now I'm good.
All right. So I will go ahead and change some zeros to other numbers on this character sheet that I conveniently have open. Let me see here.
I mean, I assume Kane wants the arrows.
Does he? Let me see. How far below max or his normal is Kane? Just on normal arrows. Oh, you know what? Oh, there we go. He's got like 50 arrows or something stupid. And I'm just going to give them all to Indomitable for now, but Indomitable will be willing to give some up if that comes up later. Oh, I do need to give him a quiver. And that is, how much is a stupid quiver weigh? I forgot to add that one. 1 pound. Okay, cool.
Maybe you'll get to control him as a zombie.
As a zombie?
Yeah.
Lol. Yeah.
Good.
Go ahead. Try and kill him. It'll probably work.
I didn't say we were going to kill him.
Oh, I see.
He seems like a very tragic character.
Fair enough. Let me see here. He sets out he says, "Oh, and this is interesting. He sets a few more things out. Finally, here are some items either that I have no use for." And he says, he throws out, there's a sort of a tattered leather journal. He says, "This mostly seems illegible. If any of you are interested in it, let me know. Or I mean, just go ahead and take it." And then he sets out 2 final items. There is a clear sort of bubbling potion that he sets out, as well as a small pouch. And he says, "This pouch has a few small gemstones in it. I would be much obliged if you let me keep that, myself being without any funds," but he shrugs. "Again, for the sake of friendship, if you would like it, you may have it." And he says, "And I think this is a potion of speed. So, haste in a bottle."
Neat.
I think Kane should have that.
I can give the potion of...
Does it just give you extra movement?
It basically casts haste on you.
And that
Yeah,
can
so
make your-
haste, you get an extra movement and an extra action.
Man, I could use that a lot of times because, like,
Does it also come with the drawback as a haste?
Yes,
So,
I'm pretty sure.
So it is better than haste in that nobody has to concentrate on it. You just get the whole haste effect for the entire duration, but you do still wind up exhausted after it wears off.
Okay, Kane can have it.
Well, I think if we give it to Kane, then because he wasn't here, he'll forget he had it. So I think you might as well take it, and you can give it to Kane later if you want.
That's probably the better way to...
I mean, if you think you can use it, it's just like Kane seems to be the one who does like actual physical attacks more often.
Well, so that's the problem. Like, I want to set stuff up, and then it's like, okay, it's the end of my turn, and then KC incapacitates me lately. And so then
take it.
Yeah, because normally, I think I've made jokes about this a lot, but Colleen could probably testify that, like, me and Gamork carried a lot of the fights.
Physically, yes.
All right.
A lot of ice knives flying wild, and
Hey, I'm mostly a utility character, okay? I'm not in it for the damage.
All right. So yeah, you've got a potion of haste. I think you have other potions. It weighs the same amount as them.
I have a frost giant potion.
Dom does hold up the pouch, though. He says, "Can I keep this, pretty please?"
I'm fine with it.
I'm also not there for this divvying.
No,
so.
you are not.
Okay. Fallon looks at Kane. Says and just says, "Let it be, Kane."
All right. He says very well. I think that's about it then. Quiz, did you want to look at the journal now or later?
I'm gonna do it a little bit later.
Okay. So as you all are, as he announces, this is like sort of the end. And so, by the way, just so you know what else he took the chain shirt, the maul, the shield, some hand axes, arrows, bow, empty pack. And actually, he should keep his armor to original close to sell him. Okay, cool. Oh, and his AC is higher now. What is his AC?
Shit,
Oh,
we
wait,
should
no,
have tried
that's
to
it.
kill him.
I mean, he still has relatively trash equipment, all unmagical weapons, just a chain shirt. So, anyways, you shouldn't be concerned at all. All right. So, about this point, as you all turn about, Colleen, please describe the change in the environment.
Okay. So basically, while you guys are deciding on items, the entire room begins to change, and it just like this crawling change. Everything becomes clean, and there's nice rugs rolled out, and all the fires are lit, and adds torches to the walls, and
Oh my gosh, is this the mansion?
not to mention
Okay.
it's all fake. um, basically turn it from this ruined hovel into this like really nice castle and like plenty of room to put a dragon in it, and then it's totally covered from the rain at the entranceways, and on the outside it still kind of just looks like a hill, so it should be nice and hidden. And then I make all the beds really really nice looking, and even make some baths, because why not? Be a nice little party.
And I mean, it's illusionary, or is it?
You can see it, feel it, smell it. Everything about it seems real. It's basically magically real until it's not anymore.
Yeah, and actually, if you want any more explanation, I would just like to enter back into character mode. So you all observe this.
Fallon says, like it just happened all of a sudden, or it happened slowly.
I
He said
mean,
it was like a crawling change. Like,
yeah, but like it does happen, I will say, within a relatively short amount of time. So you can sort
yeah.
of watch the effect ripple out, if you will.
So I think
But
Fallon
yeah.
would look at Indomitable, and then he would ignore Kane, and he would look at Colleen and Quiz, and to figure out who's doing it. Would I be able to obviously tell it was Colleen? You should be looking proud of yourself or something.
Probably. Be like skipping around, be like, "Oh, look, it looks so nice." Like jumping on a bed. Like, yes.
Fallon will say, "Gee, Colleen, we've had some rough nights. Where was this in the past?"
Well, I don't feel like we're necessarily in any danger right now, and I am actually helping us against anyone else getting here. I just made it a little bit nicer inside. Just a little bit. It's not over the top, is it?
Thank you, Colleen.
You're welcome.
I mean, it's no forest floor or flop house, but it'll do.
It does take a large amount of magical power, so it's not doled out lightly.
Uh,
But
Indomitable has just been sort of standing, listening, and watching you all, but finally, Colleen, you see him look at a room down a hallway that you just created, and he says, and he points and says, "I'll take that room if you don't mind." And he looks over at you, Colleen, and says, "Thank you."
Sure, my pleasure. I hope you enjoy your evening.
And he just walks away.
Does my blue shield weigh the same as my old shield?
You know what? I'll call it 5 pounds.
Yeah, that's what it was. Okay.
As he walks away, I want to walk upstairs and see Topher.
Okay. Yeah. So let's follow quiz for a bit.
Well, if anyone else is going to do anything, you can get to that first. Just when you have a minute. That's my goal.
I mean, is anyone doing anything immediately? Fallon.
I mean, I was still thinking about what I wanted to do.
Yeah, let's just follow quiz, and we'll come back to others. Although I guess if you want to like try to follow quiz out, you can. But yeah. So quiz, you head back towards the stairs, which have now turned into very broad steps that sweep up to sort of a landing. And from there, there's a large set of double doors. Actually, idly, you realize that it's just large enough that Tavrith could actually walk down it in his dragon form reasonably comfortably. You sort of creak the door open and slip through it, like, just opened it a few degrees to be able to slip out. And you see Tavrith actually asleep in the middle of what is now sort of an opulent entry chamber.
Seeing that Tavris is asleep, I'm just going to turn around and go, I'm not going to disturb him.
Okay. You turn to walk away, you creak the door open a bit. As you do, you actually hear Tavrith's voice rumble back to you. Did you want something, Quizmiligus?
Oh, my apologies, Tavrith. I didn't mean to wake you.
He just actually his body's sort of at 90 degrees to you. He just sort of turns his head around and says, "Not a problem at all. It's been a long day, but I was not fully asleep." In fact, you see him look around. Things have changed, I see. He looks back down at you. What was it, though?
Yes, we have Colleen to thank for our lovely digs.
I have Colleen to thank for a lot, it seems.
She's an interesting one.
You were saying?
I assume you overheard us speaking with Dom as you graciously let us ride on your back.
Yes, I believe I caught most of the conversation.
Well, you were around when Dom was cleaning up the garden.
I was young. One could never fully forget days like that, but they are hazy. More impressionistic, I think might be the term.
What was his first big play? What was his first big thing that caught the attention of the world?
He thinks for a moment, as your GM thinks for a moment.
Got him.
He says, by the time the dragons became involved, the war was well underway. You should know we were not on any side or even working with each other. In fact, I don't even particularly remember what drove me to involve myself in the first place. But he stops and thinks for a moment. Innes's call, perhaps? At any rate, by the time we were involved, it was well past the first stroke fell. But I believe they came out of the jungle and hit to the dwarven cities just north. So that would be... whoops.
Jordan.
So he's basically saying that they came from here up to these cities along this mountain ridge. He says, the base of their power always seemed to be the bog, the jungle, and the Kalaya Isles. So basically indicating this area right here, this down here, perhaps some of the intervening territory right here, but then these islands.
When I was speaking to Dom, what was interesting to me is that when I was asking him about why, he kept going on about his... Oh, what's the word I'm looking for? His sense of justice, righteousness, whatever. But there was something that hurt him that triggered him to move forward. And I think finding out that is important. I think we should really attempt to understand who this being is. Well, I was just curious what your perspective was, Robert. You've been a great help.
Well, frankly, he looks at you. Gold though I may be, being quite this helpful does go against my instincts, but I am in the end grateful to the goddess and to your party for the kindnesses they've shown. He stops and thinks for a moment more. Getting to the bottom of this one. There are a few possibilities. And actually, let me, I'm going to give a check to see how much he's able to put together, because Talvith does have some relevant information, however, not direct knowledge. So, just a second. There we go. Okay. Two thoughts. First, if we can free Innes from her prison, I think she will know much. Failing that, however, the lore of the vestiges has, well, he thinks for a moment. You know the way of myths. There are always scattered trails, false leads. You can never quite trust any particular piece of information, but when the stories seem to cluster or have recurring themes, there often lies the truth. The stories of the vestiges often center on the Kalaya Isles, and if I was to make a search, I think I would start there. No matter what talents he might have, for him to attain the mastery he claimed, someone would have had to give him a head start.
Interesting.
He sort of breathes heavily out through his nostrils. Now, that is quite a bit of territory to cover, even narrowing it down that far. He thinks for just a moment more. The original natives, if you will, of the Isles were the tieflings, them being often outcasts from other human societies. Also, it seems somewhat on theme. I might look for the older settlements. Beyond that, I couldn't say.
If we can get to the bottom of this, I'm sure we can figure out his secret to controlling the vestiges, which will give the party a much better chance at faring against the bouts that come.
He thinks for a moment. That would be useful. I will say, though, if I had reason to doubt his word, I would oppose him now, before he even has the chance. He looks back at you. Do you have any reason to think him within earshot of us? His voice gets very low.
When Colleen made this comfortable place for us, there was a hallway that led to a side room he's since walked down, found his rest for the evening. I don't believe him to be a
His voice still descends to a whisper, a rumbling whisper that you realize would be noise just a few feet beyond you. You're kind of surprised that he can even hit that tone while in his draconic form. But he says, he fears me because his control over the vestiges slips when I am near.
Sorry, Sam's taking notes, or
Yep.
Didja's taking notes. You're gonna have to wait a minute.
Yep, no problem. He gets slightly louder, but, well, actually, no, he keeps his low tone. The dragons are not many. This is why we were able to tip the balance. We are not beholden to any god, good or evil.
Thank you, Tavrith. This has been eye-opening. I'll let you know if I find anything.
Very well.
And Quiz sort of bows to him, lowers his head a bit, wishes him a good evening, and heads back down to the others.
He does return your bow, slightly shallower, but acknowledging you, and then settles back to rest. All right. Let me see here. Sure, we'll start with Fallon. Fallon, you doing anything during this time?
I go to one of the baths and light up some gnome salts.
All right. Yeah,
And
roll me your d20.
And me and Gamort get in the tub.
Fan art, please. Okay.
A magical 15.
let me see here. You are in the tub. The tub is warm and comfortable. The water cradles you like a mother who's a better mother than yours was, cradling a small child. You feel
Good clarification.
yeah. You feel relaxed and at peace, and you feel as if you're swinging slowly back and forth as the warm water sort of seeps through uh, the grime and cuts you away to a core inner self. You look out. There wasn't a window before, but there's a window now. You see the moonlight streaming clearly through the soft rain. The moonlight is a bright pink, as it should be. All about you, there dance strange creatures. Actually, no, you realize they're trolls. Um, their teeth sharp, their noses large and hooked, their hair black and flaxen, knobby arms and claws coming out of their body, and they really could do better than those loincloths. But you see the smiles on their faces as they jump back and forth from foot to foot. They, in each hand, they hold a pineapple and they sing a song that fills you with inner peace. Although when you come out of your reverie, you don't remember the words of it.
Nice. Do I remember any of the dance?
You just remember it was just sort of a rhythmic hopping back and forth from foot to foot. Sort of think like tribal dance around a fire kind of thing. It was something like that.
Got it.
You think you were in the bonfire position in this analogy. All right. I presume you just get some nice rest.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I plot against Imra in my mind.
I'm sorry. I'll. Oh, okay. Yeah. Let me jump to Colleen real quick first. Colleen,
Yep.
doing anything during this time?
Well, I would like to jump on my big fluffy bed that I made, and then I will also take a nice long bath, and I'm gonna say that my sheets are magically heated because why not?
Brilliant.
And I will gonna throw in some magical pajamas.
Can you do that?
I don't know,
I don't
but for
think.
flavor, I want magical pajamas.
You know what? It doesn't hurt anything to allow it in this case. So I don't. This does not set a precedent for later. But this
Yeah,
time you get magical pajamas.
it's just because I want to walk around in not my dress. Okay.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
Wait, so
I
what
don't-
happens when the
I
magic
like it.
fades?
10 days, it just goes back to how it was.
I meant for your pajamas.
I'm hoping
Well,
that
they stop
she's
existing.
even though she wears a dress, it looks as though she's wearing 10
Yeah.
days.
No. So after 10 days, if you guys are still here, then like this just becomes a different genre.
Naturally.
But I might go investigate his room,
His
Tom's room,
interesting.
where he went.
Okay. Okay, explain to me how you're going about this.
So I will go down the hall and knock on the door and ask if he wants to build a snowman.
You.
But not really. I'll just knock.
Oh, okay. You knock. Um, for a moment, there's no answer. And now wait. Question. When you say you made baths, was it like a central bath or the baths like associated with the rooms? Like, is it a
They're
bath per
more
room?
to the room, I would say,
Okay.
like private baths.
Yeah. You wait a beat, and then you hear sort of a splash of water, and you hear a call from inside. You need me?
Oh, I'm sorry if I'm bothering you. I just wanted to see if you needed anything.
He says, I think you've tended to things fairly well.
I just want to make sure that you're comfortable. I know that you've been in a box for a while.
He calls back, rather than shouting through the door, would you like to come in?
If that's all right with you.
Yeah. He says, go right ahead.
All right, I will enter.
Okay.
Like
Yeah,
slip in.
yeah. So you step aside. I imagine it's sort of a setup where the initial room that you step into is basically the bedroom. And why is my? Oh, there we go. All right. And sort of around there's like a door frame probably, and then around that is where the bath area is. So you're just like initially in the bedroom.
Hmm.
Um, you look around. There's a large bed, cabinet, a desk. You see his supplies actually like just sort of neatly arrayed um, beside the little cabinet. Most of it in his pack, but a few of the weapons sort of laid out. Um, you also see a cloth next to them, and you imagine that. And actually, you know what? Give me intelligence real quick.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. Not a high check or anything, but like you realize, oh, he's tending to these long neglected weapons and
Polishing his sword.
or his maul. But yeah. Um, and yeah, like I don't know, you get a general sense of there's a general sense of order about the place and looks fairly comfortable.
So was this your room before I modified it a little bit?
Um, I mean, actually, he says this is not a place I stayed much. We had a number of these locations throughout the bog. When I stayed here, I took whatever room was convenient.
I just figured maybe you had a special place in one of these.
Oh, well, he thinks for a moment. It is important for the rank and file to understand where they sit, but I find that opulent shows are sometimes the best approach, but not always. Sometimes they need to know that you're willing to enter the muck along with them. So when I came to places such as these with the most loyal of my soldiers, I typically did not set myself in any particular station above them, at least in terms of amenities.
Think that shows a good quality of leadership about you. Um, what did you do here? Like, why did you need these? How did they get so run down?
Well, I think time will do that. I'm actually Surprised to have found it in as good of shape as it was. That couldn't have been more than a few looters by. He thinks for a moment, though. But as to why we needed them, he says, I think it's simple enough. Many men demand many supplies. And when one has to retreat, one needs a place to retreat to.
You don't seem like the kind to retreat, but I suppose there's always a need for a plan.
You retreat when it's necessary. I believe the phrase is, fools rush in where angels dare to tread, and I am no angel, but I am also no fool.
Interesting analogy.
Wise men say. Wise men say.
I just, I wanted to make sure that you're comfortable with all this. I can't imagine change and just going from, you know, how did you go from conquer the world to this? Like there had to be something that happened to you.
I lost.
But what did you learn from that?
What did I learn?
Losing's terrible.
I mean, there's something to gain in every situation, you know. It might not be the outcome you intended, but there are certainly things that you can take away from it, and it sounds like you may have had a positive one, be it maybe a little sad.
You hear a splash, and he chuckles softly, and he says, Clean? You are an interesting person. I cannot remember. And then he trails off a little bit, and then says, no one has talked to me that way in a very, very long time. And I don't even mean just the imprisonment there. He stops and thinks for a moment. I suppose that what I learned is that no matter how great I make my power, I am not the only power in the world. But, and his tone changes on a dime, I'm interested in you now, Colleen. What is your motivation that you would enter such a deadly place as you just obviously passed through, that you would journey with these strange companions to the edge of the world? What brings you here? What brings you into my room asking what I learned?
Well, honestly, I started my journey as a student at the Academy of Tindos. I really just wanted to learn all that I cared about as many subjects as possible, and I had some experiences that led me to magic, and I was naturally very good at it. And I really just wanted to help people, and I realized as a wizard, I really am not very good at healing, but I took a liking to necromancy as a way to kind of work into that school in hopes that I could prevent people from dying rather than use them after they are gone, but the magic is still there. Um, so I'm naturally curious, and you are a grand curiosity both in power and magical skill, and to not only resist but to wield the artifacts as easily as you seem to boast is quite a feat. I I am also very curious about you.
He
There's just a lot
laughs.
of phrasing that keeps making me think you're trying to
Insatiably.
rude.
he laughs again and he says, "So you are a seeker of understanding in its purest form. Fascinating." You hear a splash, and you can hear him wiping himself off with a towel. Um, he continues. Actually, what does he continue? Sorry, just a second. I will tell you what, Colleen. For your trouble, I will tell you one more curiosity about myself. I cannot cast a single spell. Well, not without help, anyway.
Is that uncommon? I mean, I guess a lot of companions and people I've met don't use magic, but I figured everyone could if they wanted to. Is that not how that works? I guess I've never had that conversation with anybody. That's weird.
He steps out. He's pulled out I'm presuming there was some sort of robe in the bath. He's now wearing that. He steps out and he leans against the door frame as he talks to you. And, once again, he does absolutely dwarf you. And also, you realize again just how unsettling most people would see his appearance. In particular, his hair, despite having just washed it, is still sort of long and crawling almost. His eyes are penetrating, but they're this milky green color. And just overall, like, you're a pretty open-minded person. You realize it doesn't affect you as much, but most people would be pretty unsettled here. But he looks at you and says, "Frankly, I have never seriously attempted to master the art. I'm the sort who believes in playing to your strengths."
I can understand that. Certainly most people would favor the strength, but I don't know where I'd be without my magic. I don't know if I could do half of what I do without it.
Well, you are a curious person, and he looks about him. Clearly gifted. I think there are many ways in which we can all develop. We all have certain propensities built within us. We all act according to our nature, yes?
Yes, for the most part, I would agree with that.
So, your nature led you down one path, and mine led me down another.
But you're so different from mine. It's really, I don't understand how you got to be there, and I want to know everything.
Give me persuasion.
Persuade. Go, Colleen.
Okay.
+9.
All right. Let me see here.
Guess I just, I don't understand from what I see in you and all of the possibilities and what I'm told of you that is contrary to that. I just don't, doesn't line up quite right, so I need to figure it out for myself.
He thinks for a long moment, and he says, "Have you ever heard the story, perhaps, of a woodsman cutting down trees to bring back for lumber, who has an accident finds his arm pinned under more weight than he can carry and amputates himself in order to save most of himself.
Are you saying that you lost something?
No, no, no. This is merely the first part of an attempt to explain the difference in my reputation and my bearing that you're perceiving.
Okay.
He says there are a few kinds of people. There are some who can't bring themselves to ditch the arm. There are some who do so, but who are violently sickened by it. And then there are some to whom the arm is gone, and it is not to be mourned. It is an inevitability, and for whom the will to survive, to continue on past that reality, is everything. He shrugs.
I feel
I'm
like you
such a
fall
person.
into that line. Yes. What happened to you? I feel like that's a dramatic cut as far.
He we can make it that if you want.
Cut to quiz. Go
Okay,
away.
I'll cut on one more line. As you ask him that question, he says, I am one for whom my will is everything. All right, and then we'll cut to quiz.
He's a Green Lantern.
So do we have separate rooms, or is it just like a bunch of beds in a room? Or
Now, it seems like you have separate rooms.
okay, so Quiz will just kind of take whichever room is open after talking to Tovrith.
Okay.
Not gonna look at the journal just yet.
All right.
Instead, I'm gonna open the Book of Shadows.
Okay.
And I'm going to talk about everything that happened in the dungeon we were just in,
Okay.
with emphasis around dying and coming back.
Okay. You do remember you already wrote that part.
Did I?
Yeah, right after it happened, you spent some journal time immediately.
Oh, okay.
Yes, you did. I remember that.
Yeah, I did. I remember that too. It's been a while.
Yeah, no
Okay. So I'm gonna skip to when we found Dom.
Okay.
And I'm going to detail out the interaction I had with him.
Okay.
I'm going to relay what Tovrith said.
Okay.
Talk about how's it pronounced? Kalia Isles?
Kalaya.
Kalia Isles.
Mm-hmm.
And then ask the question, do you know anything about Dom? And I would write his full name.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is all so dramatic.
Long seconds pass with no immediate response. Finally, you think that if you are indeed interacting sort of consciously with your patron, she either isn't answering or she's considering her response very carefully. Or maybe she's just doing something else. You're not sure.
In that case, I will close the Book of Shadows.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, I need to write that down. Not a full in-depth read, but I want to get a sense of what the journal is.
Okay. Go ahead, and I think I've been using history for this. That works. Let's roll history. Not actually recalling historical knowledge here, but I think int check is reasonable here for piecing together clues, and like it would be very old writing actually, so that makes some sense. Okay. Yeah. So this thing is like very very tattered. There are pages that like the ink has just run all over it. There are torn pages. There are just all sorts of holes in this. You're never going to be able to piece it together entirely. However, you do find a few things. First of all, on the inside cover, you can make out a name, Ilya. There are also a few other names that you find repeated a few times throughout the journal. And it does appear to be structured as a journal. You see dates at a few points, although you don't recognize the format for the dates. It's unfamiliar to you. But clearly dates with entries under them. You notice these other names, Gavria and Anastasia. You would recognize that these are generally both female names, in case you're not familiar. And notice a few other phrases. Family farm, commander, pressed back, weapons, money, battle. How are they? You begin to assemble a loose picture of somebody who perhaps served in Dom's army, but to get any specifics is beyond what this journal is offering up.
Okay. Do you have? Can you paste with the phrasing, the phrases for me?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So let me see here.
I was taking notes, but I got lost after one.
Yeah. Let me see here. Trying to remember if there are. That's what I remember.
Okay. After that, Quiz is gonna settle into the comfy bed Lean made for us all and go to sleep.
Okay. Let me see. How do I want to do this? How curious are you feeling?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm always curious, Casey.
Okay. Curious enough to maybe glimpse back at the Book of Shadows one more time?
Quiz will just take a peek to see if someone responded.
You see a map of part of the world that has been
shit.
drawn onto the page.
Okay.
And let me see. Right here, a location has been marked.
Yeah, I see it.
I'm
Okay.
just going to leave that there. And I'm going to
Well,
switch back
fuck
to my
me.
atmospheric image.
We found a mystery.
I'm into it.
All right. And you all settle to sleep. Kane zombies over to his bed, idly wondering why he never felt like talking today. He normally feels like talking quite a bit.
Why he let those gems go.
Yeah, but like... Oh, actually, we should, Colleen, you were interacting... you know what? Yeah, let's go ahead and resolve that real quick. Were you looking to get anything in particular else out of the interaction with Dom, or should we just sort of have the next scene be you retiring to your individual corners?
I mean, whatever you want to happen.
Well, I mean,
don't-
I'm just saying, when we left off, you were still talking to him. If you want to talk to him more, you absolutely can. But I'm going to end the session at everyone going to bed, basically. So
Yeah. I mean, I didn't have anything specifically that I wanted to or like needed to get out of him. I just
okay.
was going having a character moment with
Yeah.
him.
Okay, sounds good. So the next scene then, so we cut to Fowlin relaxing back into his bed, to Quiz doing the same. Colleen walks out of a room. The door closes gently but firmly behind her. She pauses for just a moment, reflecting on the conversation that she had before making her way back down to her room. Perhaps idly missing the companionship that was previously offered to her, first by carrying the Creation Stone Lacidel with her, and later a young Quaddle.
And I have no
Altogether,
zombies either.
yeah.
So alone.
But still, I would think eager to see what the days to come will bring. Up the stairs, a dragon lies slumbering with an illusion of opulence, but opulence nonetheless, ensconcing him, altogether more befitting of a dragon such as he than the state of things when they arrived. And on that happy note, we close the evening. Good night, everybody.